Hey listeners, quick question. Are you tired of overpaying for your mobile plan? I've got the answer. Ting Mobile. Ting Mobile is all about flexibility and savings. You only pay for what you use, no crazy fees or overages. It's perfect for those who want control over their phone bill without sacrificing quality. Say goodbye to bloated phone bills. Go to MilwaukeeMafia.com/Ting. Ting Mobile. Mobile that makes sense.
You're listening to Milwaukee Mafia, your podcast dose of Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Milwaukee Mafia podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin guesses he's ready for this podcast.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm ready enough, I guess.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, so on the other recording we just did, you mentioned I've got this thing in front of me.
It's a big folder.
It's a big folder, yep. So what this big folder is I put in a request with the Milwaukee Police Department for a 1968 homicide, which is the focus of our episode today.
Okay.
This is what I got. They sent this folder, by the way. This is not my folder. I mean, it is now, but this is how they sent it. And
it is a big file.
It is a big file. It's like 350 pages. And I think listeners know, because I've been mentioning this, like, my eyes are kind of messed up right now. They're pretty good at the moment, but, like, I don't enjoy reading. Like, as much as I love reading, lately I do not enjoy reading because my eyes, like, I feel weird when I try to read things.
So for this podcast episode, Eric is just going to read the file, all 350 pages to Gavin.
No. But I had this file, and like when it's just like black writing on white paper, and I've got good lighting, I can read fine. But like this file, so a lot of it's like handwritten, so I'm like going through it, I'm like, it was a real pain in the butt. But went through it and condensed it down to very short notes.
Yeah, 350 pages down to 3 pages. Not even 3 pages.
Not even 3 pages.
Just barely touching the third page.
Yes.
So
maybe at some point I'll go back and I'll expand it because there's more information in there. But I'm hoping to get this scanned and online as well. It's 350 is too big to fit in the scanner, so I might have to split it in half. But I do want to share that because it's important to me that the information gets out there. So if people want to see where I get things from, they can find it.
Yes, and it's less FBI files that the FBI has to pull and print out for people.
Yeah,
if it's readily available.
This is the police.
Well, whatever. Yeah,
that'll save you money too because this not that it cost me a fortune, but it costs a little bit to get them to copy all that. Anyway, so it's our final 1968 episode. Which means we're moving. It feels like we're going really slow. We only do 4 episodes for each year, but it feels like we've been in 68 for a while. So we're getting out. We're getting out of there. I already kind of said what this is going to be, so I will just say it. This is a man named Wilbur McCulley, and he is going to die. So
I think we talked about that. We were going to have a death in the last episode. So.
Yes, and I have at least one murder for 1969 as well. I want to make sure that we keep the
murders coming.
Keep the
fresh.
Murders coming, yeah. So everyone's like, oh, it's gambling. Although, I don't know if you see the email, but we've been getting emails on the gambling episodes lately.
Oh, really? No,
yeah.
I don't ever look at the email. So.
Okay.
That's a Gavin job.
Okay, for whatever reason, that's been getting in the emails. So I'm like, oh, there's another gambling episode. I like it, but they're repetitive. But apparently people kind of like that. Anyway, so we got Wilbur McCulley. He's born around 1936. Just to give you an idea that when we're coming into the 60s, he's like in his early 30s. June 20th, 1966, he is in Jackson State Prison, which is in Waterloo, Michigan. It's a minimum security, so he's out there just kind of working in the field when he decides, I'm just not gonna go back today, and he walks off the property. Apparently, this is a really easy thing to do because for the next 2 years,
he's on the run.
He's not even on the run.
Oh, they just don't care or what?
He goes from Michigan to Milwaukee. He uses a false name. He calls himself Arthur Bryan. He's got a wife, Diane Bryan. They've got 2 kids, plus she has 2 kids from a previous marriage. And they all live together in Milwaukee. And apparently, as long as you just don't use your real name,
nobody ever finds you.
Nobody ever finds you. So he's just comfortably living in Milwaukee. Now, he comes into my radar because in early 1968, a man named Peter Mershdorf starts a tavern called The Rut, which was in West National Avenue, so kind of like on the southwest side of Milwaukee. Has a partner called John Morn. And I assume we've mentioned John Morn by this point, but if not, John Morn is definitely one of these major gamblers in Milwaukee. Not strictly speaking a mafia guy, because he's not Sicilian, but he's in those circles. Like, he knows all the bookies, and his name comes up repeatedly as being part of that circle.
Gotcha.
So Peter Mershdorf and John Morn start this place, and they then meet Arthur Bryan. He's hanging out at a bar called the Interns. They strike up a friendship, and they bring Arthur Bryan into the Rut. So now it's like 3 people run this place.
Okay.
They also each contribute $8,000, which is significant money in the 60s. And they build a pizza parlor called Nero's in West Greenfield Avenue. So again, same kind of area. This is really more West Dallas than Milwaukee. But when they incorporated Nero's, their attorney for the incorporation was Joseph Balestrieri. Nothing really to do with the episode. Don't read too much into that. But just an interesting footnote there that Joe Balestrieri happens to be the attorney of record when they're filing their documents on this.
Okay.
So that doesn't really factor in, but just to throw his name out there, you know?
Yeah. You gotta have a Balestrieri in every episode, right?
Yeah. So they've got the Rut, they've got Nero's. Macaulay is living Macaulay Bryan, whatever you want to call him. He's living comfortably. He starts stocking up on guns, which he's buying from Casanova's.
Which we've talked about Casanovas at some point in time.
Which is nothing against Casanovas, but I mentioned him by name because we did a Casanovas episode. He has his wife purchase the guns, so like he doesn't have his like handwriting or anything on anything, because he's still conscious of the fact that he doesn't want to leave his evidence out there. But he starts stocking up on that. September 28, 1968, there's a fire at the Rut. The damage was extensive, so much that it actually killed 2 people.
Holy crap.
But they then decided, well, we'll just take the insurance money and we'll focus on the pizza parlor. The fire department is pretty convinced it's an arson, but they don't know who did it. They don't know if it's an insurance scam or if someone else did it. But this was, to them, they're like, this was not an accidental fire. So, like, it's kind of getting these guys on the radar here. John Morn is known as a gambler. Arthur Bryan is also building up a reputation as a gambler, and apparently, like, he would regularly have large sums of money on him, which this third guy, Peter Mershdorf, who, as far as I can tell, is not involved in really criminal activity at all. Mm-hmm. He assumes every time this guy has cash, it's because he's been out gambling. That is not the case. That is not. I mean, he does gamble, he does make money, but that is not where he gets the money from. Macaulay, or Bryan, has this interesting thing that he does with his wife.
Oh, God. How interesting is this thing?
Not what you're thinking. Not what you're thinking. What they'll do is they got their 4 kids. They'll get a babysitter.
Okay.
They get a babysitter. They drive out of Milwaukee. They drive up through Upper Michigan.
Okay.
They come down into Michigan. They rob a bank. And then they come back the next day and pay the babysitter.
Oh, now, do they do this, like, repeatedly?
Repeatedly.
Really? Okay.
This is like an ongoing thing where they'll rob banks in Michigan and then drive home to Milwaukee.
Okay. All right.
Like, he'll rob the bank while his wife's waiting in the getaway
No,
car.
is Michigan where they originally came from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when he came to Milwaukee, he brought his whole family knows that he's not this Brian guy, he's the other guy. Because that was his family before he changed his name when he came to Milwaukee.
I'm not sure what you mean by his whole family, but yeah, his wife definitely knows.
And then his kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so on one occasion, him and his wife go over and they rob a bank. They get $37,000. Like, good money.
I mean, and that's what, $100,000 if you're robbing it today?
Probably more.
Probably more than that?
Yeah. On another occasion, this is like multiple times a month they'll do this.
Mm-hmm.
October 23rd, 1968, he robs the Cadillac State Bank in Marion, Michigan. This time he only gets $15,000. He gets away in a car that he stole out of Detroit. He left the bank employees locked in a vault. He then abandons the stolen car and hops into his own car, which is driven by his wife. Mm-hmm. And they drive back to Milwaukee. Like, this is like so weird to me.
Do we have any idea how many of these they did over?
I don't think we have a total amount. Like, there's a handful we know for sure, but he's suspected of several others.
So like maybe 10?
Yeah, it could be 10 or 12 total.
Okay. Wow.
On the drive back to Milwaukee that evening, McCulley tells his wife that he may have to get rid of a man named John Sandoval, whom she knows as John Garcia, because nobody's using their real names with each other here. Sandoval knows too much about the bank robberies and knows McCulley's real name. On the drive, they stop at a restaurant in Upper Michigan, and McCulley calls another one of his bank robbing partners, a man named William Carey, who everybody knows as William Green. He tells William Carey over the phone from this restaurant, just so you know, I think Sandoval has to be killed. You casual payphone conversations.
Yeah.
This same evening, William Carey rents a car from the Mitchell Airport in Milwaukee under his actual true name. With him at the time of the rental is John Sandoval. They drive to the Sheraton Schrader Hotel in Milwaukee and rent room 1802. Here they register under his alias of William Green.
Okay.
There's a reason I'm giving you all this information. A little after midnight, McCulley arrives home in Milwaukee, where he lives on West Beloit Road. He unpacks the car, his wife goes in, pays the babysitter, puts the children to bed. Around 1 in the morning, William Carey calls McCulley and says, "Hey, you don't got to worry about Sandoval anymore. I already shot him. We're good." McCulley says, "Man, couldn't you have waited? What the heck?" His wife overhears this and says, couldn't have waited for what? What's going on? And McCulley tells his wife, "Don't worry about it. Carey just tore his pants. I have to bring him some pants."
What?
So he grabs a spare pair of pants and 2 handguns and then leaves to go to the hotel. This is the last time his wife will ever see him. 3 o'clock in the morning, it's about 2 hours later, William Carey and John Sandoval arrive at the McCulley home and wake up Diane. Sandoval, as it turns out, has not been shot.
Yeah, I would say so.
He tells Diane, "Hey, I killed your husband with a pipe." They then ransack the place, taking thousands of dollars, guns, explosives, and some marijuana. They hand Diane $4,000 and tell her to keep her mouth shut. Sandoval insisted to her that McCulley did not love her anyway, did not love their kids, and one day she would realize this and be glad that he was dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is pretty harsh, man.
Yeah. The two men leave and drop the rental car they have off at O'Hare in Chicago, and then they fly back to Detroit. So they're out. Couple hours later, this same morning, an off-duty Kenosha deputy finds a brown suitcase in the ditch at the corner of I-94 and County C in Kenosha.
Okay.
I don't know what that would be today. Opening up the suitcase, he finds guns, explosives, and the marijuana. So apparently they stole this stuff from the apartment or house or whatever, got down to Kenosha and decide they don't want it anymore and throw it out the window in the drive. He turns it over to the FBI. That afternoon, so it's now like, this was like in the middle of the night, afternoon the next day, a maid named Mamie Dodson is on the 18th floor of the Sheridan Schrader Hotel, and she says, housekeeping, housekeeping, and nobody answers, so she comes in to do her housekeeping. Unfortunately for her, she finds Wilbur McCulley beaten to death in the hotel room. 15 officers arrive and close off the scene. His only identification on him was a tattoo on his left arm of a panther. At this point, they don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
The room, again, is registered to a man named William Green, who they soon find out does not exist.
Real. Yep.
So they're like, is this William Green? And if it is, who is William Green? Like, they have no idea. Through the tattoo, they are able to put out, like, whatever you do to contact other police departments, and somebody has it on file. Oh, that panther tattoo, that is Wilbur McCulley. And by doing this, they're like, oh, and they kind of look into it, and they kind of find that he's been a suspect in a number of bank robberies in Michigan, as well as the fact that he's supposed to be in prison in Michigan, but hasn't been for 2 years. And nobody's bothered to pick him back up. So, yeah, they're looking, so they're like, okay, what recent bank robberies have we had? And they're like, oh, okay. So they suspect that he was involved in one in Kettle Moraine, in one in Milwaukee's Bank of Commerce. They're like, we think that he was a bunch of these, and especially ones where they find that, like, it was a man with a woman getaway driver. They're like,
so there is still robbing banks even in Milwaukee then at this point.
Allegedly. Like, now that he's dead, they don't ever connect him officially to them. But they start putting the pieces together that this guy, this is his MO, that him and his wife go out and do this. They find out that his hangout in Milwaukee is the Interns Bar. They speak to the owners there, and they said sometimes he'd be there with his friend Bill from Detroit, who presumably is William Carey. They don't know who Bill is at this point, but apparently he's a tough customer because he would tell the owners, he would get drunk and he would tell the owners about a time that back in Detroit, he shot and killed a black man. I will tell you, I wrote black man. He did not say black man.
Okay.
So you can assume what he said. I will not say it. The police find that he's got investments in the Rut and whatever. At this point, they're kind of piecing together, okay, he's Art Bryan. They go and they start looking into his things. Again, Peter Mersdorf, they don't really find anything on. John Morn, the police know. They're like, John Morn, we know. This guy's got a gambling record a mile long. They also run a background on John Morn's wife, Barbara, because she would apparently hang out with McCulley's wife.
Okay.
Barbara's not that big of a deal. When she was a child or juvenile, she had a breaking and entering charge. I don't know the details of that. And then as an adult, she had one arrest for prostitution. Which got reduced down to disorderly conduct. Again, don't know the details of that, but relatively minor. She's not a big bank robber type character. They talk to Diane, McCulley's wife, after they're able to find her. They have trouble finding her at first because she's going under multiple names. Sometimes she's Diane Bryan, sometimes she's Diane McCulley. Sometimes she's Diane McCorkle. So They eventually find her. She's very hesitant to speak because she thinks that if she tells the police things, she will get killed.
Mm-hmm.
But they eventually get out of her that she thinks the killers are William Carey, who she actually knows his name is William Carey, and John Garcia, which is not his name, but at least that gets them to William Carey. They interview Carey. They track him down, and he says, "I didn't kill him. I didn't kill McCulley. I couldn't take a life. But regardless of this, first-degree murder charges are filed against him." Through him, they were able to find out that John Garcia is actually John Sandoval. He's picked up. They bring his photo to Diane. She's like, "Yeah, that's John Garcia."
Mm-hmm.
He is also charged with first-degree murder. At this point, William Carey is not immediately brought back to Milwaukee because he's wanted on a number of outstanding bank robbery charges. So he's held in Michigan for that. John Sandoval at this point does not have outstanding bank robbery charges, so he is brought back to Milwaukee. He has this preliminary hearing, and at the hearing, Diane testifies that Sandoval told her that he killed her husband with what she said was a pipe. Actually, it was not a pipe. It was the barrel of a sawed-off shotgun, but you could understand why she would think that was a pipe. She explained the meeting that happened afterwards. She says, yeah, they had blood on their shirts. Something had definitely happened. And she said this is because they believed that her husband was holding out on them on bank robbery money. That they had apparently been involved in a bank robbery with him, but he went back to Milwaukee and they didn't get their cut, which is a big no-no.
Or was it just because wasn't it William Carey that he told him that
Yes.
John Sandoval needed to die?
Yes.
So maybe when he just told William Carey was tight with John Sandoval.
Yeah.
Went back to John Sandoval and said, yeah, so a dude just said you need to be killed. So
Yeah.
they're like, well, let's go kill him then.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. I agree. I mean, I think that's the bank robbery split is like a motivator here, but definitely, yeah. If William Carey's just told the other guy flat out, "Hey, this guy's going to kill you," that's going to cause a problem. Sandoval gets bound over for trial, but he appeals it, and the Wisconsin Supreme Court throws it out, saying the warrant was not done properly. The authorities put out a new warrant that's better written. They arrest him again. They have a new preliminary hearing, and he's again bound over for trial. So, minor hiccup there. They try to extradite William Carey, but by the time that they're able to get that to go ahead, he's already gone through the court system in Michigan, and he's been sent to federal prison in Atlanta for bank robbery. So they're like, we're not going to extradite him from prison. He's already in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward a little bit, February 1970, so it's like a year and a half later. Sandoval is convicted of manslaughter charge, dropped from first-degree murder down to manslaughter. He's helped by William Carey, who, although he's in prison, they let him out to testify at trial.
Mm-hmm.
He testified, he says, yes, we were all bank robbery partners. Sandoval fought over money with McCulley. And he said, here's the thing. Yes, Sandoval killed McCulley, but only after McCulley threatened Sandoval with a pistol in the hotel room. So it was partially in self-defense. The prosecution thinks that William Carey is lying straight up. He's like, they don't believe this is how it went down at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was convincing enough that the jury was like, okay, we'll go along with the reduced manslaughter charges. Like, you still killed a guy, but maybe you didn't purposely go there to kill him.
Right.
So they kind of dropped that down. Sandoval, with the reduced charges, is sentenced to 8 years in prison. However, the judge puts that on hold and instead sentences him to 5 years probation. Now, I've never killed a guy.
Puts it on hold? What does that mean?
Like, says, instead of this, we'll give you 5 years probation. If you fail on your probation, then the 8 years in prison would kick in. So,
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
What a dream sentence, right?
Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, again, I've not killed a guy, but if I killed a guy,
I'm
and,
not
and they said, yeah, you're free to go, just don't do anything bad for 5 years. That's a pretty sweet deal.
I mean, you can't really ask it to go much better than that, other than be just found not guilty.
Right.
That's the next best thing.
Yeah. So, he's basically let go. He is transferred back to Michigan because he's under suspicion for bank robberies there. But as far as the murder goes, pretty much done deal on that. 1 week after Sandoval's conviction, charges against William Carey are dismissed by Judge Hugh O'Connell. Now, Hugh O'Connell, we mentioned relatively recently, he's the judge because he ran against Dominic Frenzy.
Okay.
So, these callbacks, this is why we do the episodes in order. He dismisses the charges because the prosecution says, I honestly, I don't know if I could convict him beyond a reasonable doubt, with the reason being not that the evidence isn't there, although that's part of the problem because it does lean heavily towards Sandoval being the killer and Carey just being in the room.
Mm-hmm.
The major problem here is that if he serves his full term in the Atlanta prison for the bank robberies, which he probably won't, but if he did, he had a grand total of 45 years.
So
the guy's like, the prosecutor's like, I can't really hold these murder charges open because he's not going to come to trial until he's let out of prison. And by that point, who are we going to get?
like who's going to testify? Who's going to do anything?
Yeah.
Because it's 45 years old.
Yeah. Now, with murder charges, you could eventually file those charges, like refile them later. But like in the short term, he's like, I'm not going to keep murder charges open for decades when like the one real witness we have, well, two, one is the wife and the other is the maid. Are they going to be around like to testify? Would they testify? Like, so
are they going to remember anything in 45 years?
Yeah.
You know?
So basically what happens is the charges get dropped. Now, William Carey is serving on a very long sentence for bank robbery. So it's like he's still in prison, but he never gets officially put on trial for the murder. John Sandoval gets his 5 years probation.
Does he keep to his probation? Do you know?
He's good.
He's good?
Yeah.
Never goes to jail for this.
Yeah. So we've got these bank robbery guys, one of whom gets murdered, and nobody goes to jail for it. Now, I will backtrack for a second here just to say, the reason that this is on the podcast and the reason I have the file, this big fat file that all the listeners can see very clearly through their headphones, is because this case came up to me through the FBI files as like a tangent through John Morn. That was how it came up.
Okay.
There's no indication that Wilbur McCulley has mob connections. There's no indication that he's paying bank robbery money to the mob. I don't mean to imply any of that. But my hope was that even though this was not a mob murder specifically, that in requesting the file, there would be more background check into his gambling buddies and things like that. And there's a little in there, but pretty minor. So, if somebody wants to get really picky with me, look, this isn't a Milwaukee Mafia episode. Yes, you're right. It's technically not a Milwaukee Mafia episode. But it comes up as a business partner of John Morn, who I would consider a mob guy.
Right.
So,
and
it's good enough for me that I think it's a story worth telling. Not every Milwaukee murder ends up on the Milwaukee Mafia podcast, but this one I think is close enough.
Right, and I think that it's important to point out that even though you can't find a definitive connection that shows that he is part of the mob or that he's working specifically with the mob.
And I don't think he is.
Yeah, but he is adjacent or close enough to the mob that there could be a piece missing that he could be knee deep into the mob and we just don't know it.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing is the police, to their credit, the police did an amazing job. And I am always impressed by police files because today they've got so many advantages. Not that I'm not impressed today, but they have so many advantages of how to track people down. Here, the fact that within a couple of days, they were able to kind of start figuring out who was who, even though nobody was using an actual name.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the 60s. It was lax. You could apparently buy a house and have a job with a fake name, and nobody did anything about it. The fact they were able to identify who all the players were within a matter of like a few days or a week or something, that is amazing to me. Because that's my hope was for that 1 week or whatever that they were tracking it down, they were going to be doing a lot of legwork, and they were going to talk to his business partners, and we were going to learn more about John Morn. That was the whole reason that this one got the attention that it got, which didn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't pan out because they cracked it too fast. If this would have dragged on for months, John Morn would have got more scrutiny because he would have been one of the few guys they could actually connect to him in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of credit to the Milwaukee Police Department. I'm sure this is, again, 1968. Probably nobody in this report is still alive. but good job to them for the amazing legwork on this.
Yeah. I mean, and it could just be dumb luck, right? I mean, they could have just called the Detroit Police Department, and the Detroit Police Department's like, tattoo? Oh yeah, we know that guy.
And that's
kind of what started it all, right?
Well, that's definitely it, because he's in a hotel room with no identification. The hotel room is under a false name. The only way they're able to trace the false name back to the guy is after they identify the guy, they compare like the handwriting on the registration. That's the only way they were able to prove that later. But if it wasn't for that tattoo, this would have dragged on for a while. But unlike today, where everybody has tattoos, in the 60s, that was unusual. So if you say this guy's got a panther on his arm, the police have that in their file. Like, that's something that's a distinguishing mark. Today, I don't know how many people have panthers on their arms, but it's, the police don't write down every tattoo a person has anymore. Like, that's not the way things are done. Maybe if you actually make it as far as prison, they do. But it's not like people are immediately identifiable by that.
Mm. It's interesting. One of the things I personally like about this episode is the fact that why are they driving all the way back to Michigan to rob banks?
It's bizarre.
And then, on top of that, now just imagine that, because, logic deduction tells me they probably have the same babysitter every week when they go and rob the bank.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel as that babysitter when you find out that every time you've babysat these kids, the two people that you were babysitting for were going and robbing a bank?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, they don't, as far as I recall, they don't even talk to her in the file. So
to the babysitter or whatever?
Yeah, I don't.
But it's still gonna come out, right?
And that was sexist of me right there. I said her, and I don't know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry. I assume in the 60s a babysitter is a woman, but I don't know that. Yep. I shouldn't assume. But this is one of those stories where in my brain I think of things. I watch way too many movies. And I think of things as movies in my head. And this is one that I think would be like a highly like it'd have to be fleshed out quite a bit. But it'd be highly entertaining to have a story of a couple who's like, yeah, we're just going to go out for the night. We'll be back early in the morning. Just, put the kids to bed.
You're absolutely right. This would be fantastic.
I think that's hilarious.
Yes.
Be like, oh, put on your evening gown. We're going to go rob a bank.
So, if anything, if there is no mafia connection, at least you found a cool story, right? So
yeah, no, I was hoping there'd be an extra mafia piece that showed up, but there really wasn't. The only other thing that showed up in the files, and it was so minor, I didn't even mention it, but I'll throw it out now, is for that first day or two when they didn't know, they went around to the known hangouts for like criminal characters, and they talked to the bartenders. So there's some familiar names that come up there, like Jerry DiMaggio comes up and a handful of other guys, but they're all like, we have no idea who this guy is. So it's not even really worth throwing into the story because they talk to all like the mob bartenders, but they don't know him.
Interesting. All right, so with that, I think we wrap this episode up. Unless you got anything else you want to throw out there before we...
No.
Maybe do you got a sneak peek into next week? Or
I don't. Like I said, I know next time we're moving into 1969, so we're on to our next year. I'm offhand, I'm not sure what's next. The only one that I had been working on is the 1969 murder, which we will not do next. Okay. I want to break that up. So I don't know what's next. I guess.
Well, everybody gets
be
a
as
surprise
surprised as I am, I guess.
So, all right. Well, then, if anybody does have questions, comments, or anything for you, Gavin, where can they reach out to you at?
They can email MilwaukeeMafia@gmail.com. I've gotten back to being really, really bad at answering the emails again, but I don't delete them. Be patient. If I don't respond to you immediately, I'll get there. Or you go to MilwaukeeMafia.com where you can check out the show notes. And pretty much everything that I write goes on there. So if I skim something and you want to see it in fuller detail, go on there. And there should be links to the files that I use as sources as well. So fully transparent of all the information.
Super cool. All right, then we'll wrap this episode up. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a regular episode and next week with the Patreon. We want to thank everybody for their continued support, and we'll see you on the next episode.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Milwaukee Mafia Podcast. Join us next time for another look back at Wisconsin Mafia and true crime history.